Many of these projects aren't even close to being enumerated in the Constitution. How do you propose to put a stop to this? And we begin with Mr. Hostetler.
The way I propose to put a stop to it is to cut spending. You can't spend dollars, you can't spend money on projects that are not based on Article 1, Section A of the Constitution or any other provision of the Constitution without cutting spending. When the money is there to begin with, there will always be the allure to spend money that we don't have. And that is the most important issue that we have to discuss. We must cut spending. We have a $1.6 trillion deficit this year. If we would cut spending, then you would realize that we would not have the extra money to spend on these other projects. I voted to cut and led the fight to cut all kinds of programs in the appropriations process, all kinds of particular earmarks in the appropriations process. But you must cut the spending first. If you don't cut the spending, there will always be the deficit and debt that will grow on our children.
In my short time in the state legislature, I've found that government doesn't like, every dollar that they have, they like to spend. And the best way that we take care of that is not give them the money to begin with. I think we need to have a balanced budget amendment like we do here in Indiana. We have turned this state around from a $1 billion deficit in back payments to schools and local governments because of fiscal responsibility and leadership that was willing to stand up and say, you know what, we can't spend on the request from special interests. We can't spend money that we don't have. And in order for us to do the same thing in Washington, we need the same type of leadership that we have had here in Indiana. We are one of the only states in this region to have a balanced budget without raising taxes. I think we need to eliminate earmarks. I think it is a way to pay back those members for votes for other particular bills. We need to move away from pet projects and start being fiscally responsible and getting back to the Constitution and what is required for the federal government to spend money on.
Well, number one, cutting spending doesn't answer your question, Emery. Something happens to people when they get to Washington. I've already signed a pledge that I will not pass legislation or add amendments to legislation that are not germane to the original intent of that legislation. And what we're seeing happen with the health care bill, with these massive deals that were cut, that's part of the problem. We have to change that. So number one, let's not add any amendments whatsoever that are not germane to the bill. Number two, let's have more transparency on Capitol Hill. Let's elect men and women who do not have Potomac fever, who will go there to pass bills and will not be tempted to add special interest earmarks to the bill. That will change their process, will change the vote, will tempt them to do the wrong thing for the people they represent.
Friends, I got to throw it back into your lap. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? It is our responsibility to vote men and women into office who don't believe it's their money. That's the bottom line. You have the power. We must send men and women who believe at the federal level that it's not their money, first. Second, we must send men and women who will read the bills and not complain that they're too long or that there's too many of them. Because that's how all this stuff gets in there. We know what the game is, and their buddies that they're paying off, and their lobbyist friends that they're paying off, and their parties that they're paying off. We must take responsibility ourselves and vote those kinds of men and women in. I've told Hoosiers all across the state, I won't bring one dime back. If you're looking for someone to bring money back, you got to vote for one of these other guys. Also, I won't allow some other states to stick their hand in our pockets and take our money. I want Hoosiers to keep our money. The federal government should get off Hoosiers' backs.
If I had the privilege to be elected, I would do two things immediately. One, I would join former colleagues Jim DeMint and Tom Coburn, who have stepped forward where angels fear to tread, taking on their own members of their own party as well as the other party, and exposing these earmarks. I want to make them famous. I want the people who passed in the stimulus who added the money for the honeybees research. I want to find out who added the money for the pig odor research project. I want to find the person, I think I know who it is, I want to find the person who added $5.6 billion to the stimulus package to build Ted Kennedy's educational thing after his death, et cetera, et cetera. These go on and on and on. Make those people famous, put them before the American people and their constituents. Second, line item veto. I introduced the line item veto in the Senate. I led the fight for the line item veto in the Senate. I passed it. I was the first time to pass that line item veto. Unfortunately, the President vetoed.
This time,